Hey guys, it's Ed, and the future is now, and the future may be the Robotaxi Network. Okay, what is the Robotaxi Network? Well, Tesla is preparing to launch a fully automated taxi network. I'm not sure when that's actually going to go into full effect. Obviously, there's laws and regulations that have to be dealt with, but this is coming. I'm not sure when, but I was figuring, let's make a breakdown. Let's see how much, the driver would make or the costs, or let's just do a breakdown. So I just, threw a spreadsheet together. And anyway, I wanted to talk about things. First of all, we need a few assumptions. Okay, assumption number one, that it makes like $10, 20, 30, or 40 a day. Obviously, it needs to make some sort of revenue. So if it does make $10 a day times 30 days in a month, you're looking at $300 worth of actual income that the car makes, okay? Or 20 times 30 would be 600 a month in income, and so forth. 900 if it's, you're making 30 a day, or if you're making 40 a day, it could make 1200. So if you're making, obviously, if you're making 300, that doesn't even cover your loan amount. Your loan amount on a Model 3, about 50K, will run around 700. That's ballpark. Okay, you've got insurance, maybe a couple hundred. You've got your electric bill increase, assuming that's, let's say, $5 a day times 30 days, that's about 150. So I'll try to get a little more detailed with that. But let's say, and then you have maybe some maintenance and cleaning. You're gonna have to change tires eventually. You're gonna have to keep the car clean. Okay, that's a guarantee. So if the total expenses are ballpark around 1070, okay, and you're only pulling in 300, you're gonna be taking a loss of 770. Okay, so let's say it's doing 20. Well, you're getting 600 in. Well, that's almost the loan payment. Well, if you get 900 coming in, you're looking at the loan payment and the insurance. Okay, that's pretty big. And if you end up doing $40 a day, pulling in 1,200 total on your side, that pays for everything. That pays for the car loan. It pays for the insurance. It pays for the electric increase, and it pays for any maintenance on there, and you'll pocket about $130 a month. So that's pretty good. But now let's get into a little more detail about it, because it's not that simple. Okay, Tesla claims basically 18 to 22 cents per mile is their cost. So if that's their cost, 50 cents per mile is about the lowest that I think that they would ever charge per mile base to the customer, the ride-sharing customer. So if that's the case, then 50 miles a day, that's pulling in $25, or at 100 miles a day, it's pulling in $50, or 200 miles a day, it's pulling in $100. That's at the low range of that. Let's assume that it's at 75 cents per mile, and they want to beat Uber and Lyft, who are currently charging $1 to $2 per mile. Okay, well, they don't have to, but I mean, if they charge 75 cents, then you can see how much the car would generate off of 75 cents per mile. But then let's say they charge $1 per mile, which I think is fair, and that's like direct competition with Uber and Lyft. Except there's no driver in the car, and you get to, get a Tesla and have it automatically just drive you where you need to go. So there is some advantage, even if they directly competed with Uber or Lyft. But let's say at that point you could do 50 miles a day. Obviously, it's $50, or 100 would be $100, or 200 miles a day, which is like commercial, would be about 200. Okay, so that's dealing with that situation. Now, it's not that simple. Tesla's going to take 50%. They're taking half, at least. At least that's the data that I got. I thought Elon Musk mentioned that 50% kind of goes to the customer, 50% is going to go to Tesla. That's a massive revenue source for Tesla. Massive. I mean, in the billions. I estimated around 10 to 11 billion is what they can generate on 1 million cars driving around on this network. That's 1 million cars. Obviously, there could be millions and millions of cars on this type of network, and that would be a huge revenue source. I don't think people are really considering that as a possibility, but I think that's almost an inevitability. Okay, so anyway, you've got to break that in half, meaning Tesla's getting half, So you're getting the other half. So basically, if the car is driving, you're only going to make $12.50 if they charge 50 cents a mile, which is super low. You're only going to make $12.50 if you're, running 50 miles a day. Now, 50 miles a day is like basically a personal minimum, meaning if I'm using my car 75% of the time and then I put for 25%, I put it on the network just, to pick up a little extra money. That's basically the minimum. And let's say I use it 50-50, meaning, 50% of the time I can put it on and 50% of the time I'm going to be using it. Obviously, it's going to be charging overnight and whatnot and during, off times. And then 200 miles a day, that's basically for commercial. I mean, if somebody just buys the car and says, look, I'm putting this on there, and they're never going to see the car. It's going to be on the network the whole time making money. Okay, so that's a different proposition. But these two are more for, more for personal use. Okay, now let's talk about that a little bit further. So in a monthly basis, for the same scenario, you're looking at 375 you could pull in, okay, off 50 cents a mile. 375. So that doesn't pay off the car. Okay, at 75 cents a mile, you'd be pulling in 562, which is almost paying the loan payment off. But if they kept it at $1 per mile, you could be making $750. Basically, it pays off the car just for putting it on the network about 25% of the time, potentially. Okay, now, if you're like me and you only drive 2,000 to 4,000 miles a year, you can put the car on the network, 75% of the time. So to me, I'm looking more like, I hope they keep the pricing at 75 cents or $1, and then putting it on there for about 100 miles a day. You're looking at potentially making $1,100 to $1,500. Now, if you get to the $1,500, so $1, and you hit an average of 100 miles per day, you're pulling in $1,500. Well, obviously, that covers your $1,000, plus you're making $430 a month. So that is passive income. You didn't have to really do anything besides own the car. You're not out there driving it. I mean, obviously you got to clean it up and stuff like that, but for the most part, it's passive income. And to boot, the riders are paying. They pay for your loan, your insurance, your electric, extra electric, and your maintenance on that. So they pay for all of that. They buy your car basically. It's kind of like renting a house out. I mean, people are just paying for you to own the house. It's going to be the same thing. They're paying for you to own the vehicle. Okay? And then commercial, you're just putting it on this. You could potentially make a lot commercially with this, but I'm not sure. There may be a lot of restrictions. I'm not sure what Tesla's going to do. Obviously, they're under control of this. So what they kind of say goes. So you're not going to really have much of a choice in this, but I'm figuring they're going to make it fair. I mean, they're not going to make it unfair for the consumer or the person with the car, the owner of the car. Okay, so but here's the miles that you're dealing with. You're going to deal with 18,000 miles a year put on the car if that's 50 miles per month. If that was 50 miles per day, 50 miles per day, you're looking at 18,000 more miles or 36,000, or if you're putting it commercial, you're running it into the ground, 73,000 miles plus per year. That's not even the time that it goes in between everything. So you're looking at 73 to 100,000 miles you're putting in the car. That car is going to be worth nothing. So the car may be worth something in the middle, and it may hold some decent value here. So you got to consider that. It may hold some value at the end in general depreciation by beating it up, putting it on this Robotaxi service. Okay, I mean, not everybody's going to treat your car the same. So anyway, I was trying to figure out, average trip miles. I didn't really get into detail with this. I just was trying to get an average. Let's say if the average trip was 5 miles, obviously in the urban populations, it's going to be 2, maybe, or in suburbs, it's going to be maybe 10 or 15. So I'm just putting it as a 5 just to kind of get an idea of how many rides per day to get to that 50, to get to the 50 miles per day. So you need 10 rides. I mean, 10 people are going to have to get in your car per day to get to that 50, or 20 for the 100, or 40 for the 200. 40 rides for the 200. I mean, that's total commercial at that point. Okay, so that's how I break down that issue, but you've got to consider some variables. Tips. I mean, are people going to tip the owners? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, if I was Tesla, I would put tips in. Owner, tip for Tesla. I mean, why not? I mean, you could do that. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. If they want to tip the company, they could tip the company. If they want to tip the owner, they can tip the owner, or both. I mean, to me, that's a good program. And if Elon's listening, tip Tesla too. You may as well at least add the feature. Anyway, there's a little bit of analytics that are going to have to be dealt with here, or an algorithms, I should say. Basically, how are they going to choose which car they're picking? It's not just user selection, okay? Because, based on the closest car, or based on what car the person picks, based on what about the car's charging? What if the car's only 20% and there's a car right, a mile further that's 100%? Aren't they gonna put that car that's at 100% and give them? So I mean, how they have to balance that pretty well. I'm not sure how that's going to work exactly, but I'm sure they understand that through Uber and Lyft, that type of platform, about how to deal with that. I'm just not familiar with that. That's kind of out of my element. So it's just things to think about. Anyway, and the car always has to come and go. I mean, obviously, if somebody calls it on the network, it's going to come pick you up, okay? And then if the car is going to pick you up, it's going to take you wherever you're going to go, but now what? Does the car go back to the owner's house, or does the car just sit there at the person's location waiting for another possible ride? I mean, is it legal for it just to sit at somebody's residence, or at Publix, or at some shopping center, or Walmart, or whatever it is? I mean, I don't understand that exactly. That's going to put a lot more miles if the car keeps going back and forth to your house on every time it gets a trip. So to me, that's an issue, and maybe they can come up with some legislation or whatever to allow them to kind of just leave the cars laying around, okay, just at the closest spot. And then at the end of their kind of shift, they come home instead of driving back and forth all day long. Anyway, there's going to be a zone too that you got to consider. Like, obviously, think about it if, okay, I put my car on the network and then it goes to, I don't know, 30, 40 miles away. And then, I need my car back. So I click on it to come back and the car is 40 miles away. Well, that's no good, because now I'm going to be late for whatever appointment or picking up my daughter or whatever it is. I'm going to be late. So it's only going to be a zone scenario potentially, or you're going to have to like put a time frame that the car can stay out. So there's going to be a lot of little feature things that they're going to have to deal with for this. But this is just a general breakdown. I was just kind of thinking myself, and my brain was kind of running, and I was like, there's got to be a way to figure this out. And let me know in the comments if you think something's right, wrong, if there's something I need to add, if there's some data that you guys have that will help the cause. And if anybody wants the spreadsheet, I'll be happy to email or send you the spreadsheet, and you guys can use it down the road if you decide to do it, and to figure out your numbers, your metrics, to figure out whether it's worth it for you. So please like it, subscribe, whatever. I'm going to try to put more stuff out, every month, kind of update on what's going on, so we can get more data about the future that we're kind of being thrown into. Anyway, thanks a lot. I appreciate it, and take care.